On behalf of the Assembly of First Nations and our National Executive Committee, welcome all Rotarians to the Rotary International Convention. You're gathered in Toronto, the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabeg, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations. It's a great honor for me to speak to you today. As elected National Chief that advocates on behalf of 900,000 people living in 634 First Nations and in cities and towns across this country, it's my job to represent their interests. And we're diverse, from the West Coast Salish and the Haida to the plains where the Nakota and the Cree and other tribes call home, the Anishinaabe and the Saulteaux and the Woodlands, and in the east you'll find the Six Nations, the Mohawk, the Oneida, Tuscarora, and at the east coast, it's home to the Maliseet and the Mi'kmaq nations. There are more than 58 Indigenous languages being spoken across Canada, and though we've lost many of them along the way, we continue to battle to save our language and culture from extinguishment. During a dark chapter of this country's history, the government attempted to not only wipe out our languages, but destroy the Indian in the child. This was the phrase used by government as they implemented the residential school system. And despite the tragedy of the Indian residential schools, and despite the colonization and the control of the Indian Act, and everything we've endured as Indigenous peoples, we're still here. Our culture, our language and social systems have shaped the development of Canada, and we continue to grow and thrive despite this extreme adversity. You know, the Rotary Club has for many years been a great inspiration and a source of strength for me. In fact, I was a member of the Fort Capel, Saskatchewan Rotary Club in the late 80s. And for me, membership was about community service and building bridges and relationships between our peoples. And like you, I believe there are few commitments as important as the commitment to humanitarian service, to making a difference, especially for those less fortunate than ourselves. As Rotarians, you have a powerful voice. And now is the time to use that voice to influence world leaders and to build a better tomorrow for everyone. You are community leaders who have influence on the most pressing issues of our day. Issues like gender equality, climate change, economic development and environmental issues, and of course, reconciliation. There's a word in Cree, Oskapeos. It means helper or to be of service. And I believe this is our role as leaders. As an Oskapeos, it is your responsibility to be the voice of your community, to consult and engage with others from across the country while gathering insights on how other Canadians perceive First Nations issues. I must commend the Rotary on the Honoring Indigenous Peoples initiative. You've acted on the calls to action outlined in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, and you've created a program that will educate all Canadians about our shared history, but more importantly, our shared future. This Canada-wide Joint Rotary and Indigenous Peoples Initiative supports learning, it promotes understanding, and it will help build awareness and sensitivity of First Nations issues and priorities. And I look forward to seeing more programs and initiatives through this partnership. If every Rotary Club across Canada and around the world takes up this promise, we can build understanding and move forward together. And as Canada embarks on acts of reconciliation and acknowledgement, as helpers and leaders, we know the important work that has to be done in order to get there. I'm pleased with the progress being made by groups such as the Rotarians on reconciliation and improving the quality of life for our peoples. But the road ahead remains long and difficult. We're still too far from completing these very important calls to action. And the time for action is now. We cannot let another generation of First Nations children down. We will be relentless in our efforts, and we will not waste this opportunity for fundamental change. And everyone has a role in reconciliation. We're living in an important time. Continue your work of connecting people and ideas for building a better Canada for all peoples. I lift up all of you who are taking part in this convention and wish you all great success. Kinanaskum Tinawa.